right, so I think the recording's going, so we are good to roll. So I have this question that's up there on the board, and you guys have been answering it very well. What are natural disasters, okay? And so that's what's going to be our class today, what we're going to be going on. Is we're going to be talking about natural disasters, and then at the very end, you're going to get a Google form. You're going to need to research a particular natural disaster and write a little bit about it, okay, of what you learned. So this is your objective today. It's giving a natural disaster in a Google form exit ticket. Students will choose one natural disaster, and there's some that you mentioned, like sinkholes and some stuff like that I didn't put on there, but feel free to do that if you would like to, if that's what interests you or fascinates you, okay? So somebody said tornadoes fascinate them, all those kind of things. Students will choose one natural disaster and research a current event to determine when the last natural disaster occurred and how that affected the environment in the area with 80% accuracy across one trial. So, for example, I'm just giving this as an example. I mean, you can use it, I guess, but we did just have an earthquake in Utah, right? And you'll be able to research it a little bit. How big was it? What did it affect? How did it affect the environment and the people surrounding there? And you guys might have that first-hand experience of that if you lived within that area or felt it, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's start rolling through all these, okay? All right, so ask yourself, what is a natural disaster, okay? So one thing that we need to be aware of is the world is always changing, okay? It's moving, right? We have tectonic plates that help it move. They're shifting in those tectonic plates, and that's what caused a lot of it. You also have different climates and weather. Some people were talking about tornadoes or hurricanes or tsunamis. You have low pressure and high pressure and warm air and cold air mixing and then cause these things, okay? So natural disaster causes great damage in certain areas and affects the land or the environment that's there, and then also people's lives and people's everything. So there is a lot on there, okay? So sometimes they affect the earth like deep within the earth, right? Like a volcano, for example, right? You're getting lava that's coming up or magma that's coming up from the earth, and you also have like the shifting of the plates, that kind of stuff, okay? So there's a lot that's going on there in the regards of the world changing. So you guys listed some already, but you have, for example, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, cyclones or hurricanes, avalanches, floods, droughts, forest or bushfires. Are there any others you can think of? Somebody put sinkholes, which, yeah, they are. They could be a natural disaster. There's mudslides. There's all sorts of things like that. Any that are not listed that you guys can think of right now? Tsunami. Okay, yep, tsunamis. Very good. Sharknado. I'm not sure Sharknado is an actual natural disaster, but okay, lightning. I like that. Lightning, and it usually causes like a fire, right? You said sinkholes before. Fantastic. So there's some other things that you can kind of do. So kind of start thinking right now what kind of natural disaster you want to research. So then when you do your assignment 2 today, you can be able to do that. All right. That is a blank slide. I don't know why that is blank. Okay, anyways, okay, I probably had one thing on there and then it just went blank on me. Okay, volcanoes. Volcanoes is a volcanic eruption, okay, that's spurting out of gases and lava from the opening in the Earth's crust. Pressure from deep inside the Earth forces ash, gas, and molten rock to the surface. Okay, so here's an example of a volcano. In the early 1800s, they had what they called the Little Ice Age. That was actually caused by a volcanic eruption in India. And so this volcanic eruption happened, and all of the gases came out and actually covered the whole entire Earth. And so the sunlight could not get through these gases. And so the Earth actually went into what they call a Little Ice Age, where they could not grow their crops and everything like that. And you had a whole bunch of migration, and it affected the United States, the people in the early 1800s back in New York and Pennsylvania and those places, and they actually had to move from place to place because they could not grow their food. Okay, so that's kind of a different way of volcanoes that affect it just than, you know, the typical eruptions. So they said, did you know that there are species of antelope that can jump higher on average? That is very interesting. Cool. All right, next here. Earthquakes. Okay, I'll put in the chat real quick. Who felt the earthquake that happened? Was it last week or the week before? I can't remember now. Things of that. Okay. You did? Okay. So most of you seem to feel the earthquake, okay? Was that your guys' first earthquake that you have ever felt before? Yes, alright, okay. I felt little tiny ones before, but that was kind of the biggest that I felt. But it was a really interesting experience, right? And earthquakes are, you know, the violent shaking of the earth. It's caused by either volcanic eruptions or the tectonic plates that have kind of gone there. Yeah, Utah has had a hard 2 weeks. Some people said they've felt the aftershocks even up to from 2 weeks after that has happened. Yeah. Yep. It was kind of crazy, right? So now we kind of understand what it is like. And a lot of you guys have firsthand experience in what a natural disaster can. And luckily that was small enough that it did not cause a lot of damage. And luckily no bodily injury to anybody or death. Okay. A cyclone, okay? So we're not going to really get a cyclone or hurricane. There was a tornado in Utah not too long ago that came through Utah, the Salt Lake, in Salt Lake, and actually touched down. But usually we don't get that because we have the mountains that kind of stop that air from combining and really creating big tornadoes. Okay, so a cyclone or hurricane, okay, happen on the water, while a tornado or typhoon happen on land. And it just depends on where you live, depending on what they call it. Okay, so for example, in the southern hemisphere, and the cyclones usually happen over in the area of like Indonesia, that kind of stuff. And then we have hurricanes in the northern hemisphere, and those usually happen on the Caribbean Sea, okay? And so you'll see those. And then tornadoes, we have our wonderful tornado alley that they call it. So Oklahoma, Nebraska, those areas, they're a real big place for the open area where cold air and warm air kind of mix, and they create those funnel clouds and create tornadoes. Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on here. The next one's avalanches. Okay, has anybody seen an avalanche, or maybe, hopefully, not been in one? They're kind of scary. Nope. No. Okay, you saw one. I've seen them happening, you know, in real life. And it is crazy to think that you'd be caught up in that and kind of go through there. So it usually happens when somebody's skiing or snowmobiling. And we have these natural disasters happen quite a bit around us because we have so much snow and people recreate in the mountains. Okay, so this is something you can do. It's interesting that they can move really fast, up to 124 miles per hour. Okay, so really want to maybe that's something I want to look into. Another one is flood. Okay, flooding areas. It could be due to like a tsunami or a big wave or something like that, but it could have to do with like heavy rains or fast melting snow. It could be from an earthquake and it broke a dam, and so flooding happened there. So there's a lot of different areas how flooding can happen. And so when you're researching and wanting to maybe do whatever you want to do your lesson 2 on assignment, you might want to think of a flood. The next one we didn't list a lot was drought. So some areas you have too much water, or other areas you have not enough water to grow crops and then food in those areas, and that's the reason why some people need to move from certain areas. Okay, so that's something else you can think of. Okay, another one is forest or brush fires. We have a lot of those over in California, but there is another place that's really having a problem with forest fires right now. Can anybody tell me where that's at? Somewhere in the world. Australia, correct. Yep, Australia has had a lot of forest fires, and it's burning up a lot of natural habitat for all the species that live there. Okay, burning homes, all kinds of stuff. So another something you can kind of look at. Okay, so this will be your exit ticket, which I will throw in the chat, but I want to kind of go over that with you. Okay, so I threw it in the chat real quick, but I'm going to screen share. Okay, and I'm going to ask you real quick, will you give me a green check mark if you can see my screen real quick? Good, looks like most of you can there, fantastic. So this is what it's going to look like. So you're going to get here, it gives you the objective. You need to put your full name. I need first and last name. If your name's John, right? You may have another John in the class. Yeah, this is the exit ticket and assignment, okay, both. Okay. So there is a little video if you missed some of what we talked about today. This was actually last block, but still. 1, did you watch the recording or were at this live lesson? Then you put yes. Which natural disaster do you want to research, okay? If the one's not on there that you want to research, you can just click one and then just say, I've chosen to do a different one. So no big deal. Okay, and this is where, so you get 3 points just for choosing one to research. Okay, so if I'm saying earthquake, click that right there. Where's it occurred that I know of last? Well, Magna, Utah, right? You can put in there. Magna, oops, my thing doesn't want to type. Magna, Utah. Okay, and then you get another 15 points for writing at least 75 words and describe what this natural disaster did to the environment of the country. Okay, so I could say, you know, it's damaged buildings, it has scared a lot of people, all those kind of things, and you can do some research and look for it online about how big it was, you know, those kind of things. So do some research, kind of have fun with the project, but that is your assignment for assignment 2, and I will be putting that in the grade book. Okay? All right, any questions in regards to how that works, how it's done? I will open up my slides for you, but I'll stick around for any there. Yep, I opened up the slides so you can go back and look at them. So I'm going to stop the recording now.
Recording stopped.